backlog. So this means with massive opportunities, challenges, but as well changes that we have to face in the building industry. And this is what we at Smart Plus Academy are trying to help you with. So what do I mean? What are these innovation backlog? What do I mean by that? Now think about what happened in the last 300 years in the building industry. The biggest innovation that we have seen was about 250 years ago. Yeah, so really 250 years ago, we had the biggest innovation. What is steel? Yeah, the steel that we're using for construction and as well concrete. So these two innovations were about 250 years ago. 150 years ago, we had actually the innovation of reinforced concrete. And that is the biggest innovation we have seen in our building industry. We couldn't build buildings or even infrastructure without reinforced concrete. However, reinforced concrete was already invented by the Romans. The Romans already had this technology. We lost that knowledge of making cement and had to reinvent it 250 years ago. So this is what we are seeing in the building industry. If you're now comparing this to a different industry, let's look to the medicine. So if you look to the medicine and we're going back 150 years ago and we're looking from what happened in the last 150 years, we can say that there has been a massive change in the medical advances that we have seen, like penicillin, like anesthetics, like so many things that we have invented. Yeah. So if you're going now from that 150 years back 2000 years and compare it to that 150 years ago, you don't see a big difference. Yeah, you can actually say in the medical advances in the last 2000 years, nothing happened just in the last 150 years. Yeah. Now, when we go, for example, to the to communication today, we have our mobile phones, we have our emails, we have so much possibilities to communicate today. 150 years ago, it was still letters. Yeah, that's the way that we communicated around the world on a one-on-one. If we go back 2000 years ago, it was as well letters. Yeah, we used written words on paper that we then sent around to actually communicate. If you go into transportation, we're seeing a similar thing. 150 years ago, we used horses. Today, we're using airplanes, we're using cars, we're using so many different transportation methods that are completely different to horses. However, if you're going from 150 years ago, 2000 years ago, then we actually see that we were using horses. Yeah, so we have not seen a big advantage in that 2000 years. And now in the last 150 years, we've seen this big advantage. And this is what is now coming to the building industry as well, because now we're seeing that we can have these massive changes in the building industry that gives us far more for the money we are spending on. Maybe you know as well that about 60 years ago, you needed three incomes to actually pay for a home. Today, you need 12 incomes to pay for a home. And this massive difference is because we had not an innovation compared to the other industries. If you look to a mobile phone, like mobile phone communication, or like a mobile phone in the last, what is it? In the no, not mobile phones, cars. Sorry, lost my track. In the last 50 years, when you're thinking about 50 years ago, a car and a car today, then you see that 50 years ago, you needed to spend 80% of your income of 1 year to buy a car. Today, you only need to spend 50% of your income to buy a new car. However, the quality difference between 50 years ago and now is completely different. It's a completely different type of car. If you're looking to buildings, you can't really see a difference between a building built today, 50 years ago, 150 years ago, 300 years ago, or even 2000 years ago. If you think about it, 2000 years ago, they already had heating, they already had glazing, they already had bricks, they already had reinforced concrete at the end, what they didn't use for housing, but they used it for bigger projects. And as well, what you got back in the day as the super rich back in the day, when you look to that houses, you got a pool, you got a steam bath, you got glazing, you got an amazing villa for that money. And if you compare to what we are now having as a normal resident, like not a super rich, a normal earner, then you're getting a small apartment if you're lucky, if you can afford that, or you can't even afford it any longer. If you're looking to medical advances, 2000 years ago, the super rich, what they were able to afford, there was still like witchcraft. There was not much medical understanding. Obviously, there was some medical understanding, but they didn't know about bacteria, they didn't know about viruses. All that stuff hasn't been existing yet. And now, the super rich, what they were able to afford in medical situations compared to today, what a normal person is able to afford and what a normal person is able to get is completely different. We're getting far more value in the medical advances today as a normal citizen compared to a super rich 2000 years ago. Same we would have in the transportation system. When we look to the transportation, the super rich were able to have horse carts where they were sitting in and driving around, and that was the best transportation you could get, sitting into this little box on wooden wheels with metal around it, and it was moving like it wasn't comfortable. If you compare now what you're able to afford with your transportation, a car, completely different experience, and far more than the super rich back in the day. If you're looking to communication, the super rich were able to afford paper, they were able to afford ink and to write papers to another person. A normal person couldn't even write back in the day. What do we have today? Today, the people can actually send a message to their best friend on their mobile phone. It is there in an instant. So what you are able to afford today compared to the super rich back in the day, we're having so much more opportunities, but not in the building industry. In the building industry, when you compare to what the super rich were able to afford back in the day and what we are getting today as a normal citizen, we are actually getting less than the super rich. And that has something to do with this innovation backlog in the building industry, that we have not seen the changes that are actually possible now, thanks to prefabrication and artificial intelligence. They will change the building industry massively. And that's what we want to help you with. I hope this was a good introduction for you to in how the building industry is changing in the future. And let me know if you want more of this or different views. And if you agree with me that the building industry had the biggest advances 250 years ago with cement and steel, and then 150 years ago with reinforced concrete, or do you see different ones? Please let me know with a comment below, and I will come back to you. So if you want to hear more of this, follow us for more, and I'm coming back to you next week, Monday. Talk to you then. Bye bye.